Welcome to the Your Leadership Legacy podcast. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I'm so excited to bring you this next podcast dedicated to you high performers out there who want to reinvent yourself, reinvent your business, maybe your career, all of it. This podcast is all about being dedicated to transformation and being the best possible leader of yourself and others that you can be in order to create a legacy that lives on. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause. I am the founder and CEO of True You Teams. And here we go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and we are here today to open up a conversation on leadership. Leadership of how leadership today is different than it has been in the past. And with us, I am very, very excited. Josh Kosnick. Josh, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great today. Thanks for having me.
Good. You bet. Absolutely. I'm excited to get to know you and excited to kind of hear your background. Why don't you give us a little bit about who you are and kind of what you've got going on in this world?
Sure. So I always start with, I'm a man of God, and my family is the most important to me. So I'll start with my wife, Jenna, and I have 4 rambunctious kids, 3 girls and a boy, 7, 5, 3, 1. So we're busy. Then 2 dogs. So busy household.
Yeah.
And then while you're talking to me today, I'm the managing partner at Northwestern Mutual and also podcast host of Inspire People, Impact Lives.
Awesome. So Inspire People, Impact Lives. That intrigues me. Tell me more. What is that?
So it is actually a leadership podcast, similar to kind of what you're doing here. So I'm interested to see how this goes, as I'm on the receiving end of questions, because I'm usually the question asker. So that's fun. It's kind of fun for me to be doing this today. But really what our goal was from the beginning was to give back to the community of Madison, Southern Wisconsin, and then probably expand it beyond that. I know we have on our show coming up here, our first person that's not local. So we'll see how that continues to grow over time. But really it was a way to give back to the community. I've been blessed to be around Madison since I was in 8th grade and met some incredible people, incredible leaders that have helped mold and shape my philosophies and leadership style. And I just believe we have an untouched kind of capacity of leadership and talent around the Madison area. And this would give other leaders the opportunity to hear from people that they don't necessarily get to hear from in a unique platform.
Yeah. So what's the main theme? So you talk about leadership, but like, what's the real goal of what you're trying to do with the show or with the podcast? Sorry.
No, that's fine. So I think the biggest thing is really to get different people's perspectives on different leadership topics. So in the first season, we focused on what we knew people were good at. So we targeted people that I knew, my producer, Chad, that he knew, that we could really get in here and speak specifically on something we knew they were talented at. Going forward, it'll be kind of hearing people's stories. We'll certainly key in on other leadership topics we think are of value or of hot button topic. And go forward from there and see how it continues to evolve. But Inspire People, Impact Lives, where that stemmed from is it's our organization mission statement here at Northwestern Mutual, the Kosnick Financial Group. So we just copied that over into the podcast because it's meaningful to me, and other people have really liked the mission behind it.
Yeah, I love that. So when you talk about leadership, what, in your opinion, what's different about leadership today and moving into the future of work than maybe how leadership has been perceived in the past?
So that is what I would think of directive versus collaborative. How I was raised, and I was also underneath my father for upwards over 10 years, I guess, at Northwestern Mutual as well. So I took over for him. But how I was raised was kind of my way or the highway. That was my father's style, and it's not right or wrong, right? It's just, that's how he learned, and that's how his generation was, and that's how he led this organization at that time as well. And that's what the organization frankly needed at that time, was a leader that was going to show the way and do the way, and then they would follow that. Now, especially with this millennial generation, and I'm not one to ever speak bad. I don't ever want to be one of those guys, oh, the kids don't get it these days. That's not my message here, but with this generation, they want to be more collaborative. They want more of a team oriented thing. They want to chase after something together versus stand out individually. And I think that's really where I've had to shift as well, is because early on in my career, I was, kind of copied what I saw. And that was what my father was, and was, hammer the desk or a fist with the desk and just do it this way and put your head down and shut up.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. No, it doesn't work at all.
No, it doesn't. We've got so many different generations in the workplace. And like you said, if you've been in the workplace a long time, you're very used to that individual accountability. Whereas now the millennials and people coming in, it's more of this team concept and this group concept, and it creates conflict in the workplace. I feel like that's where my journey kind of started. Was I woke up one day and went, okay, I get that I'm successful and I get that I'm where I'm at, but am I really being who I truly authentically am, right? I was kind of being what everybody else said I should be and said I should do and dress and say and all that kind of stuff. My next question to you is about vulnerability. So where does vulnerability come into leadership at? What does that mean when you talk about vulnerability in leadership?
I'm happy you asked me that, because that's one of my favorite questions right now to talk about. And I gave a talk down at the Dream Bank specifically on vulnerability because it's such a hot topic. And for me, now you got an interview with me all bearded up, like 10 months of the year I do not have a beard. But so I come across as a very masculine man. I hunt. There's different things about me, sports, athletic. But what I've noticed is that where I've really connected with people is when I'm my most authentic self, like you mentioned, being vulnerable, sharing my weaknesses as well as my strengths, and people can really connect to that. There's such a broad topic on this that is really getting discussed. And I actually hate the term toxic masculinity, but there's a dichotomy out of there that we have to embrace as well. As it's a paradox of, you may not be someone that's exhibiting this toxic masculinity that's being out there, but you also have a role in helping stop it as well. So it's the power of and versus the tyranny of or. It's not an either or thing, it's an and thing, that we can be a part of fixing certain things that are wrong in the workplace and in society. So being vulnerable has allowed my team to really get to know me on a deeper level, to see where I'm just like, we all have imperfections and we're all weak in spots and we're all strong in spots. And it's leveraging our strengths and mitigating our weaknesses through the team, where some people, like, I'm incredibly disorganized. Know that about myself. I have people that are incredible at picking up my tornadoes.
Right.
Leverage their strengths to offset my weaknesses.
Yeah, that's amazing. So surrounding yourself with people, knowing your strengths and knowing the weaknesses, and then surrounding yourself with people who will help rise you up. I love the idea where you're going with programming. You didn't use that word, but it's kind of like that. So from a male perspective, I feel like, I've gone through a lot of my transformation and my journey and my programming as a female growing up, how I grew up, and then going into the workplace, how I grew up. But men have their own programming as well, right? And when you start to talk about vulnerability and what that means to vulnerability, it's not always been okay for men to be vulnerable. It's not always been okay for men to be soft and that. And so it really takes people like you standing strong and just being vulnerable and being out there and really kind of walking the talk and leading the way. As you talk to men about this vulnerability thing, what's the biggest lesson or what's the biggest maybe piece of advice? So if there's somebody listening to this and like, oh, I can't be vulnerable in my leadership, what's the advice that you have for them?
Start small. Work with one friend that you think would be most open to you being vulnerable to leading to. So as you talk about programming, the thing that immediately popped to mind is, because you're right, us men were never taught that, and especially the generation above us was not taught that. So then they raised us the way they were raised. And so it's not their fault, it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to have these conversations, start opening up the dialogue. So I think for someone starting small with someone that they really trust, that they have a good relationship with, so that programming is, you got to think about the pressure as a man that you place on your spouse. Because if they're the only person you can be vulnerable with, think about the pressure that's on their shoulders. Now, women were programmed to have vulnerable conversations, to have vulnerability with each other, so they have many outlets. If your spouse is your only outlet for vulnerability, and to think about the pressure that they have as let's say it's a male-female relationship, they have as a woman, as a mom, as maybe she's working as well, and then they got to deal with all of your emotional baggage as well, because they're your only outlet. That's a tough position to be in. So for nothing else, for the health of your marriage, for the health of that relationship, find some other outlets and some friends that can be vulnerable with. And I have pockets of friends. Like if I know I want to go have a fun weekend at the Badger game, or I want to go to Chicago and go just go let loose, I have that group of friends. But those aren't the friends I'm probably going to be vulnerable with. And then I have a group of friends that I can be vulnerable with and tell some of my darkest secrets and not be judged for it, and they can stand by me and pick me up when I fall down. That's a different set of friends as well. So pick appropriately as well.
Right. So I love that, because when you're just kind of showing up every day in life and being vulnerable, how has that changed from your leadership perspective? So I love how you talk about it from a personal perspective, but from a leadership perspective in business, how has being vulnerable helped you move your results in your business forward?
That's a great question. So it's not always tangible, right? So it'd be great if every measurement, if everything that, every, value like vulnerability could create a very tangible result. So, but what I will say is that the most tangible thing I've seen is when I'm vulnerable, they're allowed to be vulnerable with me. So where they can show up to work and be them, and that can lead to more productivity, where they can show up and say, I had someone in my office this morning whose wife is out of the country and he's got 4 kids to deal with at home, and he's learning all through that and trying to be here at work and get the kids to school and all this different stuff. And he goes, and then he has this one issue, and he's like, I'm just overloaded, I need to dump. And I said, so do you want me to listen, or do you want me to help you problem solve?
Love that question.
And I have to use that with my wife a lot. And I did a bit of both. He was able to do a little bit of both, but really he just felt good. If just 5 minutes dumping, having me hear him out, and then give him a couple just pointers to prioritize and not feel like he has to be everything to everyone. Prioritize here, prioritize at home, and get through the next week until your wife's home.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Well,
so what was the...
To be able to show up, be themselves, and then also not feel like that they have to hold it back in, which ends up ruining their productivity.
Yeah. So why do you think why do you think that there's this like programming in us, whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter, right? But there's this programming in us that we're fearful of being our true, authentic self. Where do you think that comes from?
Ego, pride. We all have ego. I am certainly guilty of that. And it's one of those things where some insecurities can really come out too. And I think that stems back to pride, and it may stem back to bad childhood stuff. You may have some bad either parents or other adult figures in your life that beat you down. So there could be, we could open up Pandora's box there, but I really think it all stems back to ego and being able to be 100% comfortable in your own skin and show up, and this is who I am, and it's okay if you don't like me. I'm going to make you respect me, and I'm going to love me at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. I believe that it starts with loving you, right? So when we think about why people don't show up in that kind of a state, there's probably some kind of experience, or like you said, something that happened in their past where they're fearful, worried about what other people will think, worried about the judgment, or whatever that is. So what happens is we live in this fear and we're afraid to be ourselves. Tell us what was your inspiration behind starting this podcast?
Well, first it started as a marketing idea from my producer, and he's like, we could really leverage your position and influence in the people and bring more people, kind of towards the organization. But really then as that idea stemmed, I was like, yeah, that's also great, but it also really fits in with my desire to influence. And so whether or not it has a huge effect on marketing or not, it's something that we both become passionate about, and are being able to give back to the community, and just seeing actually those shots of dopamine when we get a good comment, or I get a text that says, hey, you're crushing us. This one was really valuable to me, or this line was really valuable to me that the guest said, or that you said. Like those shots of dopamine are really reaffirming to what we're doing. So, so sometimes things can stem from being a great marketing idea or a great business idea, and if you can I always tell people, like, if you can match your passions with a business type of thing, like if you're out networking, or in my business, you got to do a lot of networking. It's like, okay, well, if you love playing softball, or if you love playing golf, and you can turn that into a business venture, you're not only doing something that you're passionate about and enjoy doing, but it could be profitable to you as well. That's the best of both worlds. So
Right. Absolutely. I love that. Talk to us about driving out childhood cancer. There's this golf event that that you've got going on. Tell us more about what that is and what it's all about.
Yeah, so 3 years ago, so really my mission is around helping kids. And it's been interesting. My parents influenced that. We were with March of Dimes and did a lot of good work with them for over the years. And as I just noticed, like, just personally, this is no offense to any other charity, because there's so many other worthy causes, but me as an adult now having 4 kids, like, I've lived a good life. If I, God forbid, was diagnosed with cancer right now, I can stomach that more than one of my kids or someone else's kids getting that diagnosis. I want to let every kid have the chance to be a kid. And so that's really been our mission around it. So Alex's Lemonade Stand is where the money goes. And they're the premier organization. If you go to charitynavigator.org, they rate all the charities out there. This woman and her husband who lost their daughter to cancer, and it was really their daughter's mission that started a lemonade stand, got so much traction over Philadelphia, and her story, before she died, her lemonade stand raised over $1 million. And it's unbelievable. And the organization has continued. So one of the tough parts that we've had is that it's not necessarily known as much around Madison. So it's been our mission and kind of drive. We've even tossed this around, like, do we end up just folding in with American Family Children's Center or Carbone, because those are known quantities or entities in Madison, I should say. And we're like, no, so we've been able to bring $150,000 back to the Carbone Research Center from Alex's for the research grants, not only because of our doing, but also because of the fantastic researchers that are at Carbone. When we put in a grant, or they put in a grant to Alex's, they're well respected. So the money ends up coming back to Madison, which is exactly our cause. Is let's figure out a way. So our mission over the next 9 years is to raise over $1 million, and hopefully do it much sooner, to bring back to Madison and help eventually cure cancer for kids.
Amazing. That is such an amazing cause. And so I'm glad that we could talk about that on this, so we can let more and more people in the community know about what's going on with that. The last question that I have for you. So there's probably several different types of leaders watching this, right? There might be somebody that's not a leader with a title yet. We all lead in our personal lives, but in our professional lives, maybe I have a title or maybe I don't. Maybe I'm aspiring to be a leader. Maybe I'm a leader now that is really stuck. I believe that we have a lot of leaders in today's environment that are stuck because they're used to this old way of leadership. And the whole world has changed, right? We're moving faster. Change is happening all the time. We're constantly connected. There's always information coming at us. And so if you're not managing that, life can get really hectic really, really fast. And so the question that I have for you is, what one piece of advice do you have for leaders that really are stuck, that need to move out of being stuck and really do want to level up their leadership game, but just they can't figure out how to get there?
So self-development is so key. And so it's knowing thyself, knowing where you want to go, and then putting yourself in a position over and over and over to not be denied. I was told many times that because I was following in my father's footsteps, that corporate wanted me to go elsewhere. And I had to so they were going to you're doing a great job. We're going to put you in a bigger city or give you an opportunity elsewhere, because they're so scared of the nepotism view. It wasn't my father's decision that I took over. It was Northwestern Mutual's decision that I took over. So my point is, I got to make it undeniable that I'm the right person for this job. And so you have to continue to self-develop. You have to continue to lead by example. What books are you reading? How many books are you reading? Every waking chance I have, if I'm not if you think about podcasts, I'm listening to podcasts all the time. I'm not just recording my own. I have some favorites out there. I'm reading books. I have a miracle morning routine where I'm up at 5:04 a.m. every morning. I'm reading. I'm doing my cooking for the day, and I work out later in the day, so I don't do that in the morning. But I'm getting that all in. I'm sending motivational videos that I either hear or listen to on YouTube or a podcast to certain other leaders in my organization. So they're always hearing from me on different things, and so I'm pushing them to grow based on my own growth. And so you have to be obsessed with growth of yourself, and that'll bleed into others. Yeah.
Top book and top podcast, other than yours, of course.
Okay. So yeah, you got to get on Inspire People, Impact Lives podcast. Yeah. But no, my favorite person is Ed Mylett, Mylett. He runs the Max Out podcast. Similar to mine, there's no commercials. He doesn't earn his money through his podcast. And so I love that about that, because there's a lot of podcasts that you're like 7 minutes in before you actually hear the content. So I'll give you the most recent book that I love versus favorite of all time. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. He's a retired Navy SEAL commander, and he wrote a follow-up to that, the Dichotomy of Leadership. And they're both fantastic. I just pick them both up because they follow each other, and they're the same format. He tells a military story, he tells the principle, and then how you can apply it to business.
Nice. I love that. I'll have to pick that up. I hadn't heard of that. Thank you so much. What I'm hearing you say is just constantly be learning, constantly be developing. It's not you go to a workshop once a year because it's in your development plan and then you forget about it. It's every single day having an intentional plan of exactly how you're going to be a better person today than yesterday. I think is absolutely amazing. And again, I think that as a leader, it's the whole reason I'm putting this show together, because I want to open up this conversation that as leaders of our personal lives, as leaders of our professional lives, taking care of ourselves is more important today than it ever has been. And it starts with kind of all the stuff that you've been talking about. So
Can I give a quick example before we go?
Yeah, please.
So 2 years ago, it was about 2 years ago and 3 months, it was October of 16, there was one thing in my life that was disconnected, and it was my workout plan, my workout regimen. I've been an athlete through college, and so that was always something that was important to me. Through business, that got away from me. And over the last 2 years, I've gotten myself in the best shape I've been in since I was 23 years old. So, but what I noticed with it is there's several people in my office that caught on to that and actually joined the gym that I'm at. And two of those people have each lost over 100 pounds.
That's amazing.
Now that's their own work and what they're doing, but it's interesting when they start asking you questions. They start, hey, what are you doing? I've seen a massive change in you. What are you doing? And all of a sudden, so they're still following you. Doesn't matter what you're doing. They'll follow your workout regime. They'll follow your leadership style. They'll follow your personal. If you're a good father and good husband, they are watching you at all times. So that's one of the burdens of leadership, as well, as you're never not under a microscope, but in a good way and a bad way. In the good way, these are some amazing things that can come of it. In a bad way, like you can't ever be off your game.
Right. You got to walk the talk, right? Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that last example, because it's the whole reason for this show. It's the whole reason that I put this together, because it's just so important to really be in tune with that. And you're leaving a leadership legacy. Like, that's a perfect example of how people leave a leadership legacy. You walk the talk, you're intentional, and people pay attention to that, and people really look up to that. So I want to thank you for taking the time out to come on and have this discussion. It's going to be super useful to lots of people. So thank you for your leadership in the community. Thank you for being a servant leader. And we'll let you go for now. Thank you so much for being on.
Well, thanks for having us on, Tina. This has been a great experience. And again, been fun to be on the receiving end of questions this time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, have a good one. We'll see everybody later. Thanks, you guys. Bye.
My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. Check out our programs and events at trueyouteams.com. And until next time, make it an amazing day.